Alright, today I want to talk about tire gauges, tire pressures, and the importance. Now, we all know you need to have air in your tires, obvious, but because karts don't have suspension, tire pressure is huge. It is a lot of your suspension. It affects the temperatures of your tires, it affects the sidewall flex of your tires, it affects how much this thing squats in the corner. So knowing your pressure is a huge part of the battle. Too many people, I think, are worried about things like G-forces and very unimportant information you might get from a micron or something else, and then they're neglecting the tire pressure. So a good tire gauge is important, but as long as you have a consistent tire gauge that you can use, that's the most important thing. Let's see here. We've got a bunch of long acres. There's a liquid filled. We get a lot of questions about the liquid filled. What is the liquid for? The oil inside the gauge is more than anything just to dampen vibration. If you drop this gauge, hopefully it's less likely to give you an inaccurate reading than a non-liquid filled gauge if you drop it. The problem with the liquid filled gauge is it can actually get pressure, negative or positive, inside of the gauge. So there's a valve on top that you have to loosen sometimes to equalize the pressure. You want to make sure the gauge is up, or else you could lose some of the liquid, but you need to do that once in a while to zero out the gauge. The Alfano, that's probably my favorite gauge right now. It's also the most expensive gauge we sell, but it will do tire pressures, tire temps, memory. There's an app that you can use. You can do 3 different spots on the tire. Awesome. The digital tire gauges, easy to read, easy to zero, and people really like these. A lot of people don't trust the digital tire gauge because you can't see the needle. This is another one of my favorite tire gauges, the Long Acre Magnum. Big, easy to read. You can see it half increments, quarter increments, and you can see the needle move. It's all mechanical, so you feel good about it. And when we're talking about tire pressure, you'll typically run a higher tire pressure to get more heat in your tires, a lower tire pressure for a little bit less heat. And the reason that's so important is the rubber doesn't work good usually unless it's in between a narrow window of temperature. Depending on the compound, it's probably between 160 and 200 degrees. The harder compound tires typically need to be hotter, and the softer compound tires typically want to be a little cooler. But you also have the sidewall flex. If you run too low a tire pressure, the whole cart rolls in the corner. You can have problems bottoming out, you can have problems bouncing, and if you have too much tire pressure, you just have problems with the sliding, and it can even do like a chatter thing. So tire pressure is big. One of my favorite things to do is do it, especially on a base run, do a run 10, 15 laps, whatever it is, come in, get a hot tire pressure. All 4 tires, right down, left front, left rear, right rear, see what they're at, and then set them while the tires are still hot to what you want them all to be. Whether that's 12, 13, 14, 15 pounds. Go back to your pits, let them cool down. All 4 tires could be different, but check them again. And then that 4 cold tire set, that's what you want to set them to. There's no reason you have to have all 4 tires the same, or even the front and the rear. Each tire can be different. And tracks have different right-hand corners, different left-hand corners, so tire pressure is huge. Another thing you can do is measure the tire diameter. Get a tape measure, and sometimes you'll want to put a little bit more, especially in a rear tire, to equalize the diameters on the straightaway for less drag. But that's just touching the base of why why you want a good tire gauge and you want to know your tire pressures.